It's been over a month since Apple released the Apple Vision Pro. It's mid-March now, and Apple just released Vision OS 1.1 with tons of improvements to Persona, eyesight, virtual keyboard, and tons more. But I thought now would be an interesting time to look at 5 critical fixes that Apple still needs to make to the Apple Vision Pro. And these are fixes that Apple could make and probably should make as soon as possible. Now, before we get into this, I want to preface this by saying I don't think that there's anyone that's going to argue that the Apple Vision Pro isn't a technical marvel. Spatial computing, what they've built here is absolutely amazing. And I have to admit that it really does feel like you're wearing the future of computing when you wear these. But do I think that you should go out and buy the Apple Vision Pro? No. And that's like a hard no. And that's even if Apple does fix some of the issues that I'm about to talk about in this video. And I'm happy to get into the reasons why and some sort of full review of the Apple Vision Pro. I will for sure do a full review of the Apple Vision Pro after having used it for 100 days. But in this video, I want to talk about what Apple needs to do right now with the current version and the current hardware of this first iteration of the Apple Vision Pro. Okay, number 1, Apple needs profiles for multiple users. Profiles would allow for family members to slide the Apple Vision Pro off, hand it over to their brother or their wife, and let them slide it on. Eye recognition, or Apple calls it Optic ID, it should be able to establish which user it is and automatically log them on. And it just seems to me like this is just such a no-brainer. I'm actually surprised that Apple shipped this device without profiles. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, maybe there was some sort of technical reason that Apple wasn't able to implement this. Plus, how are the husbands of the world supposed to justify buying a $3,500 device to their wives when you're not even able to share it? And that could just be me, but it's a bit of a problem for sure. Okay, number 2, I actually think that Apple needs to double down on their SoloKnit band. And by that, I mean that Apple should actually sell a second SoloKnit band in a way to easily attach it to the Apple Vision Pro so that you have one normal SoloKnit band at the back of the head and another one that sits across the top of the head. And this is a little bit confusing, so let me explain. To me, it always seemed that Apple was very proud of this SoloKnit band. It's in all of the advertising, and it's a great design. And to me, it just looks like that Apple kind of haphazardly added the dual loop band kind of as an afterthought, perhaps after learning that everyone actually preferred distributing the weight of this thing on their head with 2 bands, just like really every other VR headset on the market. And I have no idea what the numbers are, but I've got to imagine that something like 95% of the people that are using the Apple Vision Pro are doing so with that cheaper dual band option. But there is another idea floating around out there. So if your SoloKnit band is hidden away in a drawer somewhere, I'd love to see Apple actually revive this thing, potentially even sell an extra version of this band by selling each one of these with a little bit of a plastic adapter so that you can actually wear 2 SoloKnit bands at the same time. And no, I didn't come up with this idea. There's a ton of smart people on Etsy that are just selling these little 3D tiny printed little adapters that makes this super easy. This one is just called Solo Top, but there are a few options out there like this, and I'm happy to link these in the description of this video if you're interested. But no offense to the people that are selling these on Etsy, but it seems like Apple could sell a small little plastic adapter like this with every single additional SoloKnit band that Apple sells. And really, it's the least they could do when they price these little bands at $100 each. Okay, next, Apple needs to add the ability to connect additional monitors from the AirPlay connection to the Mac. Currently, you can connect and view your Mac as long as it's running the latest operating system, and it's very cool, and it's obviously the best way to get work done on the Apple Vision Pro. But it's only one screen. And if Apple was able to add multiple monitors or screens for your Mac, all of a sudden, this device would go from sort of a fun toy to an extremely helpful work tool. Now, I can imagine the engineering challenge here. We're talking about a ton of data transfer, and lag times are not going to be tolerated very well by anyone. But there's already rumors that this exact update is coming here within the next month or two. Rumors are that Vision OS is expected to support up to 5 additional screen mirroring options from your Apple Silicon processor-based Mac. And I say Apple Silicon Macs specifically because currently the Apple Vision Pro supports up to 4K mirroring of your Mac, but only if that Mac is an M1, M2, or M3. If you have an Intel-based Mac, mirroring is limited to 3K. And even that's a little bit confusing because technically you can select your Apple Silicon Macs to be up to 5K in resolution. There's this little toggle down here for advanced settings to see all of the available options when you're mirroring your screen. The most usable and the default when using, it's not actually 4K. By default, it's using something like just above HD or 1440p, or it's actually 2560 by 1440. And sorry to go off on a weird rabbit hole there, but it is clear to me that for the Apple Vision Pro to be taken seriously as a tool to make your work better, or at least to increase productivity, Apple needs to move quickly to enable multiple displays of your Mac or your MacBook. Now, this device's novel hand-eye control works 95% of the time. And with Vision OS 1.1, it seems to work a little bit better. One place where it struggles is when you have to select a small on-screen button, such as the ones for like closing windows, or sometimes a button that's kind of stuck in the corner of the screen somewhere. It can be super frustrating when it doesn't work because there's no workaround for this. Now, I'd love to see an increased accuracy and precision here with every single update that Apple commits to Vision OS. I'd love to see the use of machine learning to really like fine-tune Apple's eyesight for each user as they wear their Vision Pro. And I'd love to see it learn and refine its tracking as opposed to needing the user to do a full recalibration. A pro tip, if you do need to do a recalibration, the shortcut for that is 4 clicks on that top left button. And it might help you if you actually move your head in different directions and positions as you actually select those little dots. And it might help to select those dots in a random order. It's crazy how many times I've tried to get eyesight to work a little bit better. And to me, it's kind of funny because Apple's eyesight, its hand-eye controls, they're one of the most remarkable features that I've seen in years on any sort of device. And yet at times, it's also one of the most frustrating features of this device. And any sort of low light, it just makes things 10 times worse. Low light and the Apple Vision Pro are not friends. The Apple Vision Pro is constantly trying to track your hands, and sometimes you don't want your hands tracked. Sometimes you just want to sit in a dark room and watch a movie. Now, lastly, I will say lack of content, which I do think that Apple will slowly roll out onto this device. I really enjoyed Apple's Alicia Keys studio tour. I also liked Apple's TV show where that girl walked across the slack line. I don't remember the name of it, but both of which are about 45 minutes or so. And I do think that that's kind of the sweet spot for this device, 45 minutes or so, because one of the issues with the Apple Vision Pro is just having it on extremely long can get a little bit tiring. But that's like a bigger issue, and that's not something that I think Apple can fix as soon as possible. But looking at apps designed specifically for the Apple Vision Pro, and it's pretty slim pickings out there. There's no YouTube app currently, although YouTube says they're gonna make an Apple Vision Pro app at some point. There's no Netflix app. There's no Spotify app. there's just a lot of companies that just don't want to make apps for the Apple Vision Pro. And a lot of these companies actually had to specifically go in and click a box saying, please don't allow my iPad edition of our app to run on the Apple Vision Pro. Greg Peters, the CEO of Netflix, actually wondered out loud if the Apple Vision Pro was even relevant to most of their members. And overall, I don't disagree with him, or at least I don't disagree with the sentiment that he's getting at. I actually think that the market for the viewers on this device might be quite small. But I think a lot of the reason that some of these companies are skipping out on versions of this particular software may have more to do with competitive rivalries. Spotify, for example, Spotify and Apple Music have always kind of had issues. Netflix, again, might be competing directly with Apple TV and might not want to make software to help prop up the sales of this device. Now, I want to give Apple some credit where credit is due. It actually used to be that if you lost your passcode for the device, that there was no standard way to reset it. You actually had to bring your device to an Apple store or mail it into Apple Care support. Apple did correct that with one of its first software updates for this device. And then with Apple Vision OS 1.1, Apple is improving the personas to actually look a little bit better. They've increased the accuracy of eyesight, and they've improved the virtual keyboard. But hopefully Apple has some big updates coming down the pipeline really quickly for this device. I think a lot of people return their Vision Pros, but there's still a lot of us that want Apple to make this into a successful product over the next few months. And those are just a few of my quick thoughts. But what else am I missing? What else do you think Apple needs to fix as soon as possible on the Apple Vision Pro? Let me know in the comments section. It's right down there below the subscribe button and the like button. And let me know what questions you have about this device as well, and I'll try to answer them in the next video. But either way, Apple Vision Pro or no Apple Vision Pro, I really do hope that you're taking a break from the virtual world and you're getting out there swimming, biking, running, rinsing, and repeating it all over again. And we will see you guys on the next one.